Welcome back. Hope you're having a great day. Bitcoin has hit a new all-time high for this year. That's right. For the year of 2022, Bitcoin has reached an all-time high as of yesterday, right around yesterday afternoon, around, was that 1500 UTC4. So that is 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bitcoin hit $48,221, which is a high for this year. Going back and beating the opening high of 46,000 and change. The question is, will Bitcoin be able to hold this? Because it immediately rejected. So let's take a look at something here. And this builds on what we talked about yesterday. This is our range that Bitcoin's been playing in here. And we drew that channel. We'll get to that in a second. Right now, what this is, that is the 200-day moving average. If you put it over on the weekly, it's the 200-week moving average. But right now, this is the daily. That's the 200-day moving average that Bitcoin has now rejected off of twice on the daily. So that is generally not a good thing. Whenever Bitcoin rejects off the 200-day, it tends to stay down a little bit longer. So ideally, you want to see Bitcoin get above the 200-day moving average. And let's quiet this thing down a little bit so that we can. Let's turn off the 100 and the 50 for now, and let's just look at the 200, make it a little bit easier. So Bitcoin broke below the 200-day, back checked it a couple of times and dropped down right over here back in December. Same kind of time frame before that big initial drop that we had, second leg down in December. And the other thing is, whenever you have these double tops, we'll look at it on the hourly, but we've seen them here, seen it kind of here, a couple of these different areas where we've had double tops, but more particularly, this pattern right here is a pattern that has developed on the hourly. That kind of looks very similar right there. And we've seen it very similar in other areas like this. They usually precede, that double top precedes a drop. That's a larger look at that when you look at it on the daily. But let's go see what Bitcoin has done in the past anytime it's rejected that 200-day moving average right here. Back in May of 2021, it broke down below for a while, came, played with it, broke up, back down, and then ultimately it's been kind of in this range lately. But prior to that, let's take a look back here in 2017, 2018. Same thing, Bitcoin broke below the 200, checked it again twice, another little double top scenario here, broke down, double top here. So these areas here look a lot like what Bitcoin's doing right now. And I'm not saying this is what's happening. I'm just saying that it could be happening. It could be a possibility. And this is what it did last time. And let's take a look at these bounces. So after Bitcoin broke down initially, there was a 95% bounce right there. Let's look at that again. That is a 95%, almost 100% bounce right there. After that, it dropped and bounced again, 27%. Then there was another bounce right here of 54%, another bounce over here of 44%, another bounce here, 25%, and then ultimately before it had a final capitulation. If you go back to 2013, 2014, Bitcoin broke down and had a number of bounces after the initial phase, had 110% bounce. Then it had another bounce here of 80%, another bounce right here below the 100-day of 58%, and on and on. And you can see these bounces as it goes along, again, losing the 100-day, checking it here, rejecting, and losing that 100-day. So Bitcoin needs to hold the 100-day, needs to get above it and close above it in order to have any expectation of continuation ahead. But what I was getting at was these bear market bounces that you can get into. That first one was only 14%. Then there was another one here. Now that Bitcoin has reached a bottom, that was a 41% bounce. The second bounce, excuse me, the second bounce after this was 31%. And now currently we are in a 28% bounce. So this is kind of normal course of action. The difference is this price action channel that we looked at the other day, Call it what you will, call it a channel. Let's take a look at that real quick. Call it a channel, call it a bear flag. What we've been looking at is, let's get this parallel channel back out again. We've been looking at somewhat, and let's go on the closes here now that we have a close. So we've been looking at, I'm going to track the closes here, as somewhat of a, doesn't quite line up as a complete parallel channel on the closes, but it's close. If you use the wicks, obviously it's a much broader channel, but some people are calling that a bear flag. Some people are calling this a channel. And again, this exact parallel channel, I guess Crypto Savvy's been looking at this, Blockchain Backer's been looking at this. And like I said, some people are calling it a bear flag. Some of them are just calling it a price channel. And then of course, I've had Gareth Soloway on my channel, on this YouTube channel, and we've had the larger overall parallel channel that he's been looking at for some time now, that we looked at yesterday. And again, that's the overall larger channel trend. So the question is this a continuation channel here? Is that a bear flag? What is that? So we're not going to know until price decides what it's going to do as it's playing with this 200-day moving average. If we look at it on the weekly, it becomes the 200-week moving average. And let's put these other moving averages back in while we're doing this, because whenever price loses the 50, it always has gone down in the history of Bitcoin whenever it's lost the 50 and checked that 100-day. And right now price is back above the 50 and it's closing above the 50. So we'll just have to wait and see if price can stay above the 50 and then continue on and get above that 200-day, which is the 200-week on the weekly moving average right there. So that's interesting to look at. And then the other thing, we were looking at price action here. The on-chain analytics is good. There's obviously limited supply. There's some heavy buying pressure right now with Do Kwon of Luna, and with MicroStrategy. Michael Saylor once again has borrowed on his Bitcoin holdings to buy $250 million worth of Bitcoin. Not quite at Do Kwon's level of what he's doing, but Do Kwon can just kind of print stable coins out of thin air to buy Bitcoin. So that's a nice luxury to have. And you can move the market with the liquidity that we've got, or lack thereof, very easily. So there is buying pressure, and that's what a lot of this is representing. And then of course, what does everybody want to do? Most people want to go long here when you should be going short, and most people want to go short here when you should be going long. So long and short liquidations, well, right now it's short liquidations that are helping fuel this rally as well. So we'll have to see if it can continue on, or if this is going to continue to stay below that 200 and just roll over from there. But let's take a look at, like we were talking about, the Dow Jones. So the Dow Jones industrial average, if you put the daily moving averages, is above the 200-day for the first time in a while. The other thing that's interesting is that it's caught between, on the retracement right now, the 618 and the 702. So that is your range right there of retracement that we're looking for, and we have been looking for Bitcoin. So it's a critical time for the stock market. The Nasdaq is above the 200-day now for the first time, and Nasdaq has retraced on this level right to almost the 618, and that's the critical level, the 618 to the 702, to see if price will continue. The S&P is above the 200-day now, so all indices are above the 200-day moving average, and the Nasdaq has broken above the 702, headed to the 786, which is the final stand before you're back to an all-time high. This is what's interesting, is given the economic environment we're in, given the fact that there's all the risks in the economy out there right now with recession, war, all these other things, the Nasdaq has rallied back to basically, well, let's look at it this way. Let's see what it has to do to reach that all-time high again. Basically, it is 4% from its all-time high, or that's the S&P, I'm sorry. The S&P is 4% from the all-time high. Nasdaq is a little further away. Nasdaq is 9% from the all-time high, and the Dow Jones is, let's look at that, 4.5% to the all-time high. So very interesting that the stock market has been able to hold up and rebound as well as it has. Obviously, we've had a nice little bounce in Bitcoin, but not quite as nice as a recovery. Well, of course, Bitcoin fell a lot lower than the stock market, but the stock market has rebounded. And again, we've been looking for that 618 to 702 retracement on Bitcoin from this range, which again would put it 702 is right at 58,002. 618 is right at 55,000. So that's the level that we've been looking for after this bottom that was put in January at 35, 36,000. We've been looking for that retracement. It's taken a little bit longer because of the economic environment that we're in with the Fed coming out, messing things up. And then of course, with the war in Ukraine, obviously putting pressure on the economy and commodities and things like that, and putting uncertainty out there. The rally was on the news today. Obviously, anytime there are peace talks in Ukraine, markets rally. That's a lot of what that was about today. If you take a look at the news in the stock market, the Dow rises 300 points, Nasdaq jumps 1.8 as Wall Street continues the winning streak. And what this was all about, again, was the peace talks in Ukraine. There was some news out earlier that Russia might be pulling back, but obviously we know that that is probably not true, and they're most likely just regrouping to continue their offensive in other areas. So we'll just have to wait and see how all that plays out, and how things continue to develop there. But what's interesting is all on-chain analytics are good. They're bullish. They're kind of always bullish, but they're looking really good right now. Supply is limited. There is pressure, buying pressure between MicroStrategy and Do Kwon for Bitcoin right now. And the interesting thing is, and there's more corporations moving into the space, investment banks setting up their trading desks, things like that. So there's a lot of great bullish news for the space, a lot more adoption coming to the space in general. But the capital is spread out to a lot of different areas between DeFi, NFTs, Web3, gaming, and crypto, Bitcoin, Ether, and the altcoin space. So there's a lot of areas of crypto competing for that dollar right now. So that's kind of why we're not seeing price rise exponentially according to the fundamentals and the on-chain analytics. So that's why I remain cautious until we get more adoption. Retail's kind of turned off to crypto right now because a lot of people got burnt in the last year, and price has just been kind of floating sideways. But as price rebounds, people become more interested and get attracted back to the space again. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But it's going to take more capital into the space, more new investment capital into the space to drive price. But the fundamentals are good. The on-chain is good. The problem is there's just not enough new capital coming into the space to drive price. And the space is investors are trying to enter the market at a good price because they see where price has been in the $69,000 range. They see where it's at now, and they see where it came from in the $30,000 range. So, institutions, investment banks, corporations are more interested, new investors, in a lower price entry than where we're at right now. So I don't think you're going to see a big movement into the space with new capital until price retraces back and drops a little bit. So those are the things I'm looking at, and I will see you on the next video.